Hello and welcome to another episode of The Lazy Hypnotherapist. I, as always, am your host, Lily. I am a certified hypnotherapist and a trainer of conversational hypnosis, where I teach my students how to use conversational hypnosis within their practice, whether they are already hypnotherapists looking to ditch the scripts and find a more effective way, whether they are counselors, psychologists, nutritionists, dietitians, anyone that is working with clients that is essentially wanting to learn how to use the subconscious mind to get better, faster results for their clients. There are multiple different types. Just hit my camera. There are multiple different types of hypnotherapy, but my preferred style is conversational hypnosis because that's how I have found that I've been able to get the best results for my clients. So in this podcast and in my training, I teach you basically how I do that and what the whole dealio is with conversational hypnosis. Today's episode, I want to talk about this concept of why you keep doing things that you said you would stop doing. So I feel like everyone experiences this at some point. I certainly have, particularly I think when it comes to, for me, my phone, and I think that is a big one for everyone. It's like, yeah, I'll stop going on it so much, or stop scrolling, and then you find yourself scrolling. Or maybe it's, I'll stop procrastinating, but then you find yourself procrastinating. Basically that moment where you say to yourself, I'm not doing that anymore. Maybe it's like going back to an ex. Maybe it's emotional eating, binge eating, people pleasing, staying up late. You decide, okay, I'm done with this. You feel that sense of like motivation. You feel clear and certain. And then maybe it's a few days later, maybe it's a few hours later, a few minutes later, you find yourself doing the exact same thing again. And it can feel incredibly frustrating. And there is nothing worse than feeling frustrated with yourself because you know, I'm the one in control here. I'm the one that can make this change, but for some reason I just can't. And I think a lot of people feel like, oh, it's because I lack discipline. It's because there's something wrong with me. I lack motivation, that they just don't have enough willpower. But most of the time I feel like that's wrong, and that's where people actually end up getting stuck, is because they think, oh, there's just something inherently wrong with me as to why I can't make this change. And, I suppose when someone keeps repeating a behavior that they consciously want to stop, it is usually because another part of the mind believes that this behavior is necessary. And that is where, it's so important for us to really understand the subconscious mind, because these behaviors that we do, they're not conscious, they're not logical, they are subconscious. And when we begin to actually really understand that and how that all works, then we can really begin to make change. So, your conscious mind is the part of you that sets goals. It makes plans. It decides what you want. It decides, I don't want to stay up late anymore. I don't want to emotionally eat anymore. I don't want to doom scroll anymore. But your subconscious mind is the part that is responsible for the patterns, the habits, the emotional responses, the learned protection strategies. And amongst all of that, your subconscious mind has this like one primary goal, which is protection and safety. It's not happiness, it's not productivity, it's not success, it's not anything other than safety and protection. All it wants to do is keep you safe every minute of every day. So if a behavior exists, even if it looks irrational or maladaptive or just completely not helpful from the outside, there is usually some kind of subconscious logic behind it. some kind of subconscious need for safety behind it, because otherwise it truly wouldn't exist. If it's not logical and it doesn't make sense within the subconscious mind, it wouldn't exist. So for example, someone might be continually procrastinating even though they genuinely want to get things done. I have a client at the moment who is working on this with me. She is in the medical field. She has these big exams coming up. She's just procrastinating, and she's really finding it just so hard to just knuckle down and do the work. She wants to so badly, but there's just this subconscious fear and protection that's going on there. So if you look behind that behavior, the procrastination is protecting them from failure or from being judged, pressure, expectations, whatever it is for this particular person, right? This is why conversational hypnosis is so specific, because we need to be working with the person in front of us. Probably it's going to fall within one of these themes, but the reason that person is struggling with that fear of failure, rejection, expectations, pressure is very specific to them, and we need to figure out exactly what that is for them. Another example might be like people pleasing, saying yes to everything. Someone asks for something and you automatically agree. Because somewhere in that subconscious mind is that there's a belief that, saying no might put you out of safety. It might mean that, it's rejection or conflict or disconnection, and there's a fear intrinsically within you that if you say no, that will lead to that, if that makes sense. But it's very specific to you. So we'd need to figure out exactly what that is for you and why you have that fear. The subconscious would rather repeat a familiar behavior that isn't helpful than risk something that it perceives as unsafe. So it would rather do something familiar, even if it's not what you consciously want, than risk something that it has perceived is unsafe. And unsafe typically is anything for our mind that is unfamiliar, which is wild when you think about it, but that really is what it is. It's not actual dangers typically. It's things that we just think are unsafe because we've never really done them before, or they are perceived to be unsafe because they're unfamiliar. So that's one of the biggest reasons that change can feel so difficult, is because when you're trying to change something consciously, while another stronger part of your mind is wanting something else. And when it comes to the conscious mind and logic and the subconscious and emotion, the subconscious is always going to win. Always, because it is so much stronger. Not because it's necessarily stubborn, it's because this subconscious mind of ours is doing the job that it was designed to do, which is to keep us safe. And over time, through different experiences, different perceived experiences, different meanings that we've taken from certain behaviors in our environments, we take things to mean that something is unsafe when probably it isn't. What's interesting about this is most often these perceived fears and these things that our mind has taken as unsafe is usually comes from a very good place. At some point in time, maybe that fear, that belief has actually protected you. It has actually solved a problem. Maybe it reduced anxiety. It helped, avoid criticism, or helped you feel in control, or in the environment that you were raised in, maybe you needed this coping strategy to get through. So no problem ever starts to be let me rephrase that. No problem ever starts to be a problem. It starts to be a solution to a problem. It just over time, as your life changes and you develop as a person, it just becomes much more of a problem than a solution. So over time also these behaviors become automatic. The original situation, the original problem disappears, yet the pattern continues. And the conscious mind starts wondering, why is this happening? Why am I still doing this? But it's just that it worked at some point for you. So the subconscious mind responds to emotion, imagery, repetition, meaning, which is why things like hypnosis are so effective when it comes to changing that subconscious mind, because it doesn't respond to logic, which is like us just like chatting and being analytical and, figuring out the solution. It responds to those deeper feelings and those deeper meanings. So when the subconscious feels safe enough to update the pattern, the behavior can change. So we need to make change to the subconscious mind through safety. And that's really where hypnotherapy comes into play. And, one of the things about the subconscious mind that is really important to note is that it doesn't respond to force. It doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to allowing. It responds to curiosity. It responds to sort of simple shifts in perception that suddenly make sense. It responds to feelings of safety. If we can make changes in an environment where your subconscious feels safe, that's how the changes are actually going to be made. So the subconscious also doesn't respond to like self-judgment. A lot of people, when they are really struggling with something, they feel like, well, I feel so badly about this. Why can't I change this? Why can't I have the willpower, the discipline to change this? And they get very like critical of themselves. And, it's kind of like that saying, like, you can't hate yourself into loving yourself. You can't force yourself into change, because the mere feeling of force and pressure creates a feeling of not being safe within your subconscious mind. So we actually have to do it through compassion, through understanding, through awareness of, how your subconscious mind is trying to protect you, what it's trying to protect you from. And then we can make subtle shifts in actually how you feel on that subconscious level. But it has to come through understanding and awareness and compassion, and not force and discipline and, like really ruthless, which is a lot of what I guess is out there in like the coaching styles and things like that, is like, just push through, just do this, do your 8-week plan, do your da-da-da-da-da, which we know never leads to sustainable change, because it hasn't been shifted on that subconscious deeper level where it actually feels safe to make sustainable change. So it's really, really important to work from that sense of safety. And that's what hypnotherapy provides, because it provides a really safe space to explore the subconscious mind and not to feel like we're pressurizing it from the conscious, if that makes sense. So you're working with your subconscious mind as opposed to against it. So if there's something that I suppose that you want to stop doing or you want to implement into your life, the first thing that we would be doing is exploring why that feels unsafe to you. And I know it's like sounds so almost kind of like woo-woo or cliche, or like, I don't know, almost like soft to be like, okay, why does going to bed early feel unsafe to you? Like, it feels kind of lofty and silly, but actually when you really get down to it, it's so important to figure out what does feel unsafe about that to you. And unsafe is really just like anything that feels uncomfortable. So we're not actually talking necessarily about like you feel like you're gonna, be in massive danger if you go to bed earlier. It's not that. It's like what feels uncomfortable about that to your mind, because discomfort to your mind equals unsafe. So safety is really just comfort. So what feels uncomfortable about that to your mind? What is your mind rejecting about that? What doesn't feel safe to do about that? And so when we begin to actually explore what is going on there and what is feeling unsafe about that, then we can actually begin to really work with the real problem, as opposed to, oh, you're just not going to bed early enough, you just need to do that. We can work from a place where it starts to become and feel automatic to you, and like a totally acceptable, reasonable, enjoyable concept for you to do that. But until we really get to the root of it, it's just going to be like, you know, you forcing yourself to do that. And that might work for a couple of nights, but it's not going to work long term. The same with emotional eating, the same with habits that are unhelpful, like smoking or drinking or whatever it is. It might work for a little bit through pressure, but sustainably, if it doesn't feel, you know, safe to your subconscious, then it's just not going to work. So that's really, really where we need to be going. When the subconscious mind no longer sees the behavior as necessary for safety, it often lets go like surprisingly quickly, because we just need to make those subtle shifts to the safety element of it. I wonder how many times I've said safety in this episode. A lot. But when it comes to your subconscious mind, safety is everything. So when we can actually make change to that, that's where you will notice the behaviors change, the thought processes change, the way it feels in your body. That will all change from that element of safety. So if you are wanting to explore this and really kind of finally, you know, overcome this thing that you've been wanting to overcome, implement these healthy habits into your lifestyle, maybe it's worth starting some hypnotherapy, some subconscious work, whatever that is for you, that allows this behavior to feel like an option of safety to your subconscious mind. And if you're a practitioner, make sure that you are working on that level of safety in the subconscious with your clients. So if you are wanting to sign up to my training as well, you can always do that. You can start learning straight away, learn conversational hypnosis, learn how to get better, faster results for your clients. I also have a live training coming up on the 17th and 18th of April, which is going to be really, really great. And you can sign up through the description in the description. Sorry, my words have actually been cooked today. I have not been able to get words out very well, but I hope that this episode was coherent for you. You know, sometimes you just have those days, and today's one of them. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you got something out of it. And I will see you on the next episode. All right, bye.